Will the Arizona Cardinals continue their winning ways, or will the Chicago Bears get their first Sunday road win in the Matt Eberflus era? Is it trick or treat? It's homie. Come on, bro.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You just tag something on the end and hope it fits. It didn't, but Locked On Cardinals listeners, everydayers know I don't edit this stuff. You're going to see me as a weirdo, and that's what it's going to be. Crossover Thursday. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears. Thank you for making Crossover Thursday your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app, use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Two of the more interesting teams in the NFL. For NFL nerds, regardless of if you live in the cities in which the Bears and the Cardinals play or not, very, very captivating stuff so far for two teams that are hovering around 500. And this is a matchup for both teams that is incredibly pivotal for the 2024 season. Lauren, we're going to discuss all the Bears stuff this segment. I will not talk about the Hail Mary. We joked over text. That's it. Move on. Cardinals second segment, and then we're going to do pass to victory for both teams. But Lauren, I want to start first. At Cox Sports 1, first of all, on Twitter for him. At Clancy's Corner for me. The Caleb Williams experiment. People expected him to be Peyton Manning and Tom Brady week one. He wasn't. Unfortunately, spoiler alert. But he's really coming to his own in the second month of the NFL season. Starting with him, what have you seen from him so far that Cardinals fans can ingest here ahead of the game on Sunday?
Well, you say he wasn't expected to be Peyton Manning week one. He was rookie season Peyton Manning.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Plenty of Bears fans have been happy to jump on and say, yeah, that means he's going to have a great rest of his career because he started slow, right? No, but Caleb has had a pretty remarkable development from those first couple of games to where he's been the last couple of weeks in terms of just getting on the better same page as his receivers and the timing being a little bit tighter in this offense. Too often early on, he's throwing the ball downfield and he's expecting the receiver to be at one depth and the receiver somewhere else. And it's just like, it's not that they're completely wrong. It's just like 3 yards off here, 3 yards off there, because they're still kind of working through this process. But like they give him the full gamut at the line of scrimmage. He changes plays, he changes protections. Wow. He's operating the offense at the line of scrimmage like a veteran quarterback. And that's been like the most impressive thing about him. Then you throw in the ability to innovate and get creative and escape pressure out of the pocket when you think he's going to go down. Like he's not Lamar Jackson, but he is slippery. Like he's not going to break away for the 30-yard run afterwards, but he is hard to bring down. He'll still take a couple of sacks here and there that maybe you don't want him to, but his ability to extend the plays has been really critical for this offense as well. It's just been slow getting started early in games, but like even last week against the Commanders, he was clutch in that fourth quarter and turned it on after a really rough first 3 quarters. The final 10 minutes, he was lights out.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Pivoting to, they've got weapons, but it doesn't matter how many weapons you've got if you've got less than 2 seconds to throw the ball and you're running for your life. One of the things that I'm sure you said, I said this in Phoenix the last couple of years is they're going to get Justin Fields killed. They're going to get Justin Fields killed. Hey, they're going to get Caleb Williams killed. What is going on here? And I know that take the rookie sacks out of it. You don't want to throw picks. You don't want to turn the ball over. Maybe you're a split second on your blind side from getting rid of the ball. That's going to come. He gets sacked a whole hell of a lot, Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears. What is the deal with that? Is he not is he not leaving the pocket fast enough, or is this just the offensive line being pseudo Swiss cheese?
Yeah, I would say like 70% O-line, 30% Caleb there, maybe 75-25, where not a good offensive line, but sometimes Caleb doesn't always get rid of the ball as quickly as he should in some of those plays. But generally, it's much more an offensive line, and you could call it an offensive coordinator issue as well in terms of having routes that are open quickly after the snap, as opposed to guys all running 10, 15 yards downfield, and there's nowhere for Caleb to go with the ball to try and get rid of it quickly. So he has to throw it away. But like this week, the offensive line storyline is really that your left tackle is injured and missing practice. Your backup left tackle is injured and missing practice. Your left guard is injured and missing practice. And your next man up at left tackle is currently on injured reserve and might be coming off this week. And your next man up at left guard is currently on injured reserve and might be coming up this week. So they don't really have anybody healthy on the left side of the offensive line. Whoever plays is not going to be 100%. And if I'm Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals, I am blitzing and stunting and attacking the heck out of that side.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next segment, how effective that's been so far this year. Does this offense run through DeAndre Swift? He seems to be an absolute vision for what they expected him when they brought him over on a pretty team-friendly deal this offseason.
Yeah, Swift was the biggest free agent disappointment of the first 3 weeks and then randomly remembered how to play football really well again. Yeah. And now has been one of the engines of this offense for sure. And they did some things differently schematically that have helped. They've gone to a lot more like gap scheme and north-south running with him, but they'll still bounce it to the outside when you get a little too aggressive coming downhill, and that's where he'll break one free. But I've been impressed, too, that the offensive coordinator hasn't been too aggressively quick to abandon the running game and just kind of say, all right, we're losing, so you got to throw with Caleb over and over again. They did that against the Colts in week 3. Caleb threw for over 50 times, and I think he kind of learned his lesson at that point. So, they want to run the ball. They want to take the pressure off of Caleb and make it as simple as they can for him. It's just been a little bit easier said than done in that regard, and they've still had to ask Caleb to do more than they'd like him to need to do, but if they can get started earlier in the game, then they can lean on that running game more, as opposed to kind of going the running game just for balance rather than the lead of their offense.
Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals, Lauren Cox, Locked on Bears, crossover Thursday. It's going to be a hell of a game on Sunday for so many various reasons. And there's a lot of eye candy on both sides of the ball for the Bears. Now, we'll get to the defense here in a second, but Rome Odunze, who fell to 9, I think it was, just sitting in the laps of the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears were on the receiving end of one of the worst trade packages ever from the Panthers. DJ Moore I said that he was the most underrated wide receiver in his last 2 years in Carolina. And the fact they were able to get him, what he did with Justin Fields last year was pretty incredible stuff. Cole Kmet is he's a massive boomer bust guy, it seems so far this year from afar. And then you got Keenan Allen. I have no idea why he's there. I think that was one of the most ridiculous, if they didn't have DJ Moore and you wanted a veteran guy to massage Rome Odunze into the NFL, I get, but regardless, there's a lot of eye candy on offense. You got Montez Sweat, you got Jalen Johnson, who they re-signed in the offseason on defense. Talk to me about this roster construction, because from afar, the Cardinals aren't there yet, but that needs to be the path they have to adopt, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the Bears have done a good job of finding ways to build young talent on both sides of the ball, but it's been a lot more of an outside in rather than inside out approach. I mean, you mentioned Montez Sweat. That's kind of it as far as a guy on the trenches on either. It's like Montez Sweat on defense and Darnell Wright on offense are the two big investments at that spot. But otherwise, it's trading for Moore and Allen at wide receiver. It's giving Jalen Johnson the big contract on the back end. And really, this Bears secondary has been built through the draft. Jalen Johnson was a second-round pick by the Bears. Tyreek Stevenson was a second-round pick by the Bears. Kyler Gordon was a second-round pick by the Bears. Jaquan Brisker was a second-round pick by the Bears. They have invested in that position over and over again, and they just brought in Kevin Byard as a free agent to replace Eddie Jackson. But this team, it leans on its secondary and it leans on its receivers, and then it's sort of you're hoping the offensive line plays better and you're hoping the defensive line plays better. And the defensive line has been that side of the ball that has stepped up. Young guys like their second-round pick, Javon Dexter, has had a good year. Andrew Billings, their nose tackle. Guys that hadn't been super productive before are having bigger years this year, I think in part because the secondary is so good and that they're just healthier up front. But the offensive line hasn't made that step forward. And now you add injuries into the mix. And the offensive line they finished with last week against the Washington Commanders had one player who was a starter when training camp began, Darnell Wright at right tackle. The other 4 guys were not starters on this offensive line at the start of training camp. So depending on their health there, both sides in the trenches are going to be where you can attack the Bears a little bit more.
It'll be interesting as the Bears get more injured. The Cardinals are getting healthier. Darius Robinson, a first-round pick, number 27 overall, has officially been activated from the IR. Was not at practice yesterday. A TBD on if he's going to play on Sunday. Chances are he will. Jonah Williams, free agent acquisition from the Bengals this offseason. He was designated to return. They opened up the practice window for him so he could play on Sunday, play right tackle that he was brought in to do. What does it look like from the Cardinals side? I really regret that trick or treat joke in the open, though. I do. I do. I'm better than that. I'm better than that. We'll talk about that next crossover Thursday. Not the joke, the Cardinals. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Our friends at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. And it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, which is a special shot flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave. We see you, man. You know what else gave me a bit of Cardinals fan fuel this week. The moment when Kyler Murray converted the 3rd and 4 with his legs, juked the shoes off of a secondary member of the Dolphins, and the Cardinals walk it off for the third time in 4 weeks or 5 weeks off the foot of Chad Ryland. 5 Hour Energy, that's the fuel that I have and need to be my best self on game day. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with the 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Crossover Thursday, Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, at Cox Sports 1 on Twitter for him, at Clancy's Corner for me. Thanks for making Crossover Thursday your first listen, free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So Cardinals under a microscope here, Lauren. What do you want to know?
Yeah, I guess first of all, I like the framing of this, right? Two teams kind of hovering around 500, but it feels like they've kind of gotten there in different directions, right? The Bears were hot a little bit and have started to crumble down a little bit. The Cardinals were struggling a little bit and now have recently gotten hot. And I guess I'm curious, what's changed? They started 1-3. They're up to 4-4 now. They beat the 49ers, it's the big marquee win there. But is some of that just quality of opponent, losing to like the Lions and the Bills being better than teams like the Chargers and Dolphins, or what? How has this team gotten better over the year?
Yeah, I think two of the most impressive games the Cardinals played were in the losses against Buffalo and Detroit. The defense blanked Detroit's offense in the second half. An offense just put up a 50-burger on 40 whatever plays they ran against Tennessee. I mean, that was an impressive showing by the defense, which is definitely lackluster compared to the talent that's on the offensive side of the ball. But for me, Lauren, and offensive coordinator Drew Peckson's got a lot of vitriol coming towards him, and rightfully so in some respects. But putting Marvin Harrison Jr. in an offense that's mundane, that's run first, that's Trey McBride, that's James Conner, that's Kyler Murray, isn't easy just because he's an elite player. And I think it took a little growing pains to figure out how they can organically maximize the offense. And I think a lot of that is why you're starting to see better results, even though they were sleepy in the first quarter against Miami. They didn't play that well for the majority of the game against the Chargers, especially against that Jim Harbaugh defense, but they're starting to figure it out. And if what happened in South Beach unlocked this offense, the way it looked natural, organic, Marv was getting the ball throughout the game and not just in the fourth quarter or the fourth quarter. Kyler Murray looks comfortable. Like, this could be a situation where the Cardinals could be, quote unquote, in the hunt come week 14 for the playoffs this season. But it's been growing pains.
Well, and they're first place in the NFC West right now, technically. Crazy. So it's like this is a game that 2 weeks ago when the Bears entered their bye week, I think every Chicago Bears fan had penciled in maybe an easy W, certainly a win, if not an easy win along the way. And all of a sudden now it's like, oh, the sky's falling a little bit in Chicago and everything seems to be going right in Arizona. I want to get to Marvin Harrison, since you mentioned him there too. Marvin Harrison Jr., I should say. I know early on this season, the production wasn't quite as high as you might have liked. I know like Bears fans were panicking about Rome Odunze because of where he was among rookie receivers, Brian Thomas and Blake Neighbors. Everybody's been quote unquote better than him, but Harrison finally has a huge game this week against the Dolphins. Did that calm all fears, or is there still some feeling of like, okay, yeah, they still haven't quite nailed down exactly how to use him best? Heaven
forbid he's not an all-pro after 6 weeks,
Yeah.
And this is something that you can attest to, and you can take this if you want. You're welcome to, because I traded Brock Bowers for Rome Odunze during my dynasty on draft day because I wanted Rome Odunze so bad. The biggest comparison between the two is neither of them were drafted to save the offense, which is something that allows so much more organic growth at the NFL level. Sure, you've got guys like Justin Jefferson who are just going to be elite right away. That's not everybody. He had a terrible first 4 weeks, and then he's Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase was playing with his college quarterback in a throw the ball down the field, go let Jamar get it offense. Plus they had T. Higgins there. You've got James Conner, you've got Trey McBride, two guys who are the number 1 and number 2 options in this offense until he takes that from them. And I'm not worried about this. I think it's scheme. I think Kyler Murray, he needs to get on the right page. But two of the biggest plays this year, one was on 4th down against San Francisco, and one was on 3rd and short to extend the drive in Miami this past week, crossing drag routes to Marvin Harrison Jr., timing routes, opening up the left side of the field. Kyler Murray, he was the number one option, and Kyler Murray threw him the ball, and he converted. 2 difficult catches that extended the Cardinals season. If he didn't catch either of those balls, the Cardinals would be 2-6 right now. So don't look at the box score. Look at the evolution of the body of work. And it's really starting to get, like, I call it sexy. It's starting to get like, oh man, the ceiling could not exist potentially with these 2 guys.
Well, that's going to be exciting to watch. And it'll be a great matchup with Jalen Johnson if they pair that up, or against public enemy number 1, Tyreek Stevenson in Chicago this week. Well, who might even be benched. We don't know yet. The Bears aren't saying. But before we get to the defense, I just want to check in on James Conner in the running game. Cardinals are top 10 in rushing yards, top 5 in yards per rush attempt. How much of that is the running back himself, and how much of that is the offensive line?
Yes. I mean, the offensive line last year, Josh Dobbs, Clayton Tune for a game. They were a very efficient rushing game. It's the interior of the offensive line. It's Hjalte Froholt, who's one of the best, offseason signings the Cardinals have made. He made it a couple years ago. Paris Johnson Jr. is the left tackle for the future. Plus, James Conner can run over pretty much anybody that doesn't weigh more than him. It's a combination of the 2, but the interesting wrinkle about this is, while I've been on the camp that the Cardinals need to run the ball first to set up the play action, everything like that, that's what Drew Petzing's good at. If they've unlocked Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride like we saw last week, you don't necessarily need to lean on the run as much as you did in the beginning of the year. A lot more run 5 yards, turn around, extension of the run game we could see a wrinkle of moving forward. But yes, it's a combination of the interior of the offensive line's been great, the tackles have been good, and James Conner just an absolute monster.
Yeah, that certainly can go a long way towards helping a quarterback there. I imagine the Bears are going to want to try and do the same thing to help Caleb Williams. And I'm curious, I guess we'll start with the run defense there. Like, they haven't seemed to be – it's been like up and down for Arizona. It seems like they were able to shut down the Chargers running game quite a bit, but then the Dolphins got some stuff going there. What's sort of been the ebb and flow with them?
They're Jekyll and Hyde. There are a lot of, and we didn't really see it in Miami, there are a lot of bend, don't break. A lot of take the 20, the yards between the 20s. The Chargers had 400 all-purpose yards, or 400 yards, no touchdowns, which is an anomaly in the NFL, which is something, and the Cardinals, again, they blanked the 49ers in the second half. They blanked the Lions in the second half. It doesn't make any sense what we've witnessed. Having said that, they're towards the bottom 5 of pretty much every statistical category. The pass rush is non-existent. The young corners, Garrett Williams seems to be the CB1 for the future. 3rd-round pick out of Syracuse from a couple years back. Max Melton out of Rutgers. They traded back in the 2nd round. Watch Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Kamari Lassard and Nate Wiggins, I think, get drafted. And then Max Melton was drafted. So they knew what guy they wanted. They picked up an extra pick in the process. It's kind of hanging the young cornerbacks out to dry with Garrett Williams and Max Melton, because it's hard to be a corner anyways. And Garrett Williams in his 2nd year and Max Melton's in his rookie year, and they've got 0 pass rush to speak of. So that's something that's going to be the biggest issue. And then regarding the run game, getting Devon Achane in space, which is what Miami did this past week, was an absolute terror. So I definitely see that being a carbon copy of what the Bears could do with DeAndre Swift to maximize against his defense.
It seemed like the Cardinals were pretty aggressive trying to blitz after Tua Tagovailoa, and they were against Herbert as well. Would you expect a heavier dose there of pressure when the pass rushers maybe aren't getting there with a 4-man rush?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens if Darius Robinson does play. He played on both the hand in the dirt on the outside and interior defensive line in Missouri. So they need help on both sides. So it'll be interesting to see what the rookie can do right out the gate. They lost Dennis Gardeck, who was an outside linebacker, to an ACL, who had a big start to the season, but kind of tapered off like he's normally done in his career. I don't know, because it's a lesser than offensive line than what they've experienced playing against so far this season. So it'll be interesting to see if Nick Rallis just sends the house and hopes that Caleb Williams will make a mistake, or they can get him to the ground. It'll be fascinating to see.
Well, the Commanders showed the world that that's the strategy to use against the Bears last week. So I would imagine the Cardinals are going to be aggressive. And that's definitely going to be a big part of the keys to victory this game for the Bears.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see. Pass to victory next. Lauren Cox, Alex Clancy crossover Thursday. We'll be right back. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by Bilt. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in the loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Bilt Rewards come in. Bill is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Bill points roll in. Use points to jet off to a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt Points has been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/lockedonNFL. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonNFL. Make sure to use the URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Path to victory, man. I don't know what Lauren's going to say. He's the host of Locked On Bears. I do know that. At Cox Sports 1, at Clancy's Corner for me, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Bears and Locked On Cardinals your respective first listen wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Lauren, paths to victory. Go.
It feels like the Bears know how to win every football game, and it's just a matter of whether they're actually able to do it, right? I don't think each week they have to come up with some new plan. Like, they know their defense is going to hold the opponent to at most 21 points and usually under 20 every single week. So it's just like, okay, can they find a way to get Caleb Williams into a rhythm, protect him, give him decent protection up front with the offensive line so that he can operate, get a little bit of a running game going, and then control the clock and take care of the football. Like, it doesn't have to be super, super complicated. The problem is they haven't been able to do the offensive part of that consistently enough this season, especially against, better opponents that aren't the Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers. And so with injuries on the left side of the Bears offensive line in particular, they're going to need to find ways to help out on that side. And if the Cardinals want to be aggressive blitzing, like, that's one of the big keys. Like, can they give the offense answers for the pass rush and the blitz? That's screen passes behind the blitz. That's quick routes for Caleb Williams to throw to. That's tight ends and running backs staying in to help. Whatever it is, find answers for the offense against the blitz. Then it's just a matter of like, hey, take care of the football. Don't give the Cardinals any extra opportunities. And then number 3 there, then is just let your defense do its job. They're going to get you a turnover or two. They're going to bend a little bit. They're going to give up a couple big plays here and there. That's okay, but they're rock solid in the red zone. The Cardinals will score a couple times. They'll have a couple drives they feel good about, but they're not going. This is not going to be a shootout game. It's just hold the Cardinals to 17 and try and score 20. That's how the Bears play.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, the matchup when it's happening, the Cardinals are more prepared for it now than they've been in the last 5 years, 7 years. They've shown that they can win ugly and they can win pretty. The Cardinals have never been able, over the last, with the last regime with Cliff Kingsbury, they were never able to win ugly. Either everything was perfect and they won, or things went awry a little bit and they lost. And there really was no in between. And that's different now. That's the culture shift. That's Kyler Murray growing. That's the defense, not breaking inside the red zone. I mean, they gave up 27 points to what is usually a 40-burger with Tua-led Miami Dolphins. So they played pretty well, even though they gave us some big plays. For me, it's cutting the head off the snake with Caleb Williams. I mean, you have two of the best route runners we've seen in the last 20 years in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. They're not going to make mistakes, and they're going to be going against two guys who have played a combined year and a half of football together at this point. So, combined at the NFL level in Garrett Williams and Max Melton. So if you can get to Caleb Williams, that's going to be the best way. And I think you're right. Washington showed that last week. They just don't have a pass rush, which is a problem if you want to blitz the quarterback. It's going to be a lot more Mac Wilson and Kazir White, I would think. Darius Robinson, again, if he plays on Sunday, it'll make it a little bit easier for the backers in the middle of the field to be able to blitz. Give a little bit more in the A gap and B gap for them to be able to get in and potentially get to Caleb Williams. That's a big one for me. Number 2, expound upon the offensive prowess they showed last week for 3 quarters, but doing it right away against a really good defense. If the Cardinals can put up 24 or more points, this offense is well on its way to leaving the train station into sexy town. That's the thing. And it's, I just made that up. So, that's number one for me, what I want to see most, but past to victory is getting the Caleb Williams first. And then the offense starting to hum like we saw during the second half, predominantly from last week. And then number 3, touchdowns, not field goals. This is what I started with. And this is what I'm coming back to, where the Cardinals cannot afford to get in a goal-to-go situation and not get 6. Their defense isn't good enough to be able to stop whoever they're playing against. The Cardinals need to get 6. The offense needs to do their job. And I am stoked. I have no idea who the hell is going to win this game. There's so many unknowns in a really good way for both teams. How high are the heights for both of these teams? And I'm stoked.
Yeah, they're both volatile, right? Where it's on any given game, you could get a great Bears performance or a bad Bears performance. You can get a great Cardinals performance or a bad Cardinals performance there. I think the one thing I hold on to there is that we really haven't seen an all-around bad Bears defensive performance yet. Every single game, they gave 21 to the Colts, but some of that was because the offense had 3 turnovers and set the Colts up with a couple of really easy touchdowns there. But for the most part, this defense doesn't allow touchdowns. They allow field goals to what you were saying there. That happened they shut down the Commanders' number 1 scoring offense last week to where their only touchdown was the Hail Mary on the last play of the game. That's what it took for the number 1 scoring offense with your favorite guy, Cliff Kingsbury, running the show over there. So that's where it's I'm confident the Bears defense will hold down the Cardinals offense enough. It's just a matter of, will that Cardinals pass rush disrupt Caleb Williams and this Bears offense enough to hold on for 4 quarters and win this game?
And just the romantic nature of football, pretty much the same record. One team is in first in their division, one team's in last. It's just, the division relevancy hangs in the balance for both teams this week. And it's for different ways. The Cardinals cannot afford to turn the ball over. They did a good job last week. They did a good job the week before. If the Cardinals get a win at home with one more game before their bye week, we're going to be having very different conversations about this team. Now, if they lose 13-3 or 24-3 to a Bears team, which shatters any kind of momentum the Cardinals have had over the last couple of weeks, we're having very different conversations with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets coming into town next week. Either way, it's going to be fun. NFC North and NFC West, matchups. It's going to be fascinating to see where both these teams end up after week 9. He is Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears. I am Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. This is Crossover Thursday. Thank you for making Crossover Thursday your first listen. We will see you on our respective podcasts tomorrow.